It reminds us that wrapped up in all of that unfathomable horror were millions of people, millions of lives, individual lives, real people with real stories. It's up to us to learn and to share those stories on their behalf. B'yachad, together, we must never forget. Together, b'yachad, we say never, never again. One frightening statistic. If we had a moment of silence for every victim of the Shoah, we would have to be silent for 11 and a half years. As anti-Semitism again rears its ugly head all over the world, we gather here, to pray for shalom, for peace, for wholeness and for peace in our own midst now and forever. And we pray also that our prayers will be answered and that we find at last a world devoid of hatred and filled instead with peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. And let us say, Amen.
Shalom, everybody, and welcome to Beth Ami Congregation. I'm Rabbi Joe Fishoff, spiritual leader and rabbi of this wonderful, wonderful synagogue. Friends, today is Yom Hashoah v'Hagvura. Today is a day of remembrance, the day that we remember the Holocaust, the period from 1939 to 1945, where 11 million innocent people were systematically murdered by being hanged, shot, malnourished, starved to death, worked to death, and poisoned in gas chambers. It's the most evil example of what human beings could do, and it happened only 75 plus years ago. And today we remember our 6 million Jews of blessed memory who lost their lives only because they were Jewish, and did not fit the Aryan ideal. Why, though, do we still remember 75 years plus after the fact? We're all familiar with the slogans of the day, such as never forget the 6 million and never again, but what do they truly mean? Does remembering slogans from the Holocaust prevent future Holocausts? Sadly, the reality of the world shows us otherwise. There have been countless mass murders, wars, genocides, even after the Holocaust. And how many more acts of anti-Semitism continue today, not only in Europe, but right here in the United States and around the world? We vow to never forget, but does it truly help? I find it poignant that Holocaust Remembrance Day falls right after Passover. We Jews enjoyed a week just a few days ago, eating matzah, charoses, and bitter herbs in order to remember how we were once slaves in Egypt, but were free to become a nation. It was basically the beginning of Am Yisrael, of the land of the people of Israel. And we've been doing this, having a Seder with family, reading the Haggadah, and reciting the 4 questions. And we've been doing this for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. That's a long time to remember each year how we were once slaves in Egypt with the hopes of remaining free and the hopes of upholding freedom. But what have we truly experienced instead during these 3,000 years? My late father, Olav Shalom, a blessed memory, who, thanks to the United States Army, was liberated from Buchenwald concentration camp on April 11th, 1945, right after Pesach, always wondered why we as Jews have been victims of hatred for thousands of years. Across the world, we've been faced with oppression, persecution, pogroms, and fighting for our own survival. And folks, it's still a struggle today. Parenthetically, we don't have to look too far. Look what just took place at the end of Pesach, last 2 weeks in Poway, California, on a Shabbos morning, and in Pittsburgh on October 27th, also on a Shabbos. It's over 75 years later, and we're still faced with anti-Semitism. And even in our United States House of Representatives, we have a few of our representatives who spew out hateful and hurtful remarks aimed directly at us Jews. And how about that, a terribly offensive cartoon that we just saw recently out of the New York Times? I'm not saying this in order to depress anybody or to be cynical. No, we lived under 3,000 years of persecution, but we've also lived, and we also have survived. And we've been through a lot, but we've also thrived and have shown the world what we Jews are truly made of. So what does it mean that we've been surviving for 3,000 years on this Yom HaShoah, this Holocaust Remembrance Day? Despite all the hardships that we remember, what is that we keep on believing? And one of the most important themes of the Jewish prayers and songs is our passionate hope for peace. The anthem of the state of Israel is what? Hatikva. Hatikva means what? It means the hope. And all Jews know, of course, the song OspA Shalom, our song of peace. But we Jews, despite the hardships, have continued to pray for 3,000 years, hoping for a future, hoping for peace, and hoping for Lashana Haba B'Yerushalayim next year in Jerusalem, and of course hoping for an end to anti-Semitism, persecution for all people. A person cannot live for one moment without hope, hoping for peace and hoping for peace of mind as well. And so this is the part of remembering and vowing never again. We who are gathered here in one of the most prestigious, if not the most powerful nation of the world, we are the ones that are responsible for making sure never again is no more just a slogan, but a reality. We've grown up 3+ generations after the Holocaust, and many of us have parents and grandparents who are still survivors or were survivors and have heard other survivors' stories as well. But realistically, within the next decade or two, there are going to be fewer survivors to share their personal stories with us. So today and now, they pass it on to us, not just that we hear them, but that it is our duty to tell and pass it on to the next generation, and it is their duty that they should continue passing it on to their next generation and to the next and next. We have to continue to never forget. And this is, for me, what we have to vow on Yom HaShoah, never again. We're vowing as a generation, as future parents and grandparents, that we will make sure that the Holocaust and other forms of persecution are not forgotten, and that we remember and that we continue to passionately hope for and pursue peace and pursue hope. We can do it. We must do it. We must do it l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation, because that is who we are as Jews, and that is our message, and that is our legacy. Am Yisrael Chai. Amen. And thank you very much. We're now going to hear from Chazanit Lee Degani, who's going to sing the childhood elegy for us. Music and the lyrics were written by, and she's going to be accompanied by Judith Evan Goldstein on the piano.
We are the children of an era. We are the witnesses of time. Our shattered lives were filled with dreams of joy. All of us who were lost
Thank you, Chazanit. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Our next speaker is someone who has been with us here in the synagogue for many years. I'm going to introduce Norman Fryman. He served as the president of the Child Survivors, Hidden Children of the Holocaust in Palm Beach County for 12 years. In spite of all things that have happened to him in the last few months, he hasn't been well. He also continues to speak at schools and many other venues and brings the message of the Jewish suffering and bravery of the 6 million. And also recently he was awarded the Florida Medal of Freedom by Governor Rick Scott. It gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor rather, and a privilege to call up Norman Fryman, the president of Child Survivors and Hidden Children.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good afternoon, and thank God I'm able to stand with you today to remember Yom Hashoah, the Hagborah, representing the child survivors, the hidden children of the Holocaust. It is our 13th year that we are together, remember together, and cry together. We need to cry. Our eyes have seen, have experienced evil that words cannot describe. Yet each year I try to find words that offer some solace to you, my dear friends, who have experienced and suffered and lost our families, as I and all of you did. The only comfort that each one of us has is that the Shoah is not forgotten ever. Our 6 million martyrs were murdered with cruelty and anguish. Many of you have gone through torture that is difficult to express or to heal, but we must find strength and rebuild our lives with dignity and make sure that the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, remains strong and safe. That is our reward, and that we have rebuilt beautiful, loving families. Dear friends and members of Beth Ami, we are grateful to you that you shared these mournful times with us. We together will cherish the memory of our lost souls, and by remembering it, they are with us. They are with us. I just have to thank each and all of you here, and I urge you to send your children and grandchildren to go on a march to the living to revisit places of horror that we had experienced. And out of the ashes of the Holocaust, the Hashem granted us the state of Israel. And we must see to it that the state strength must be infused into it. So I appeal to each and every one of you, please, support the state so children such as I was many years ago are not told, hey, Jew, go to Palestine. Had there been a Palestine in Israel many years ago, I would not have to stand before you here as a Holocaust survivor. There would not have been a Holocaust. So it's in our hands, really in our generation, to make sure that history lives on and everybody is aware as to what cruelty was bestowed upon us. And having said that, may God give you strength and keep on fighting for our country. God bless you. Thank you.
And now we will hear a song called One Way, sung by Chazanit Lee Degani once again. Music and lyrics and accompaniment by Judith Evan Goldstein.
They spoke many words of love, many words with pain, trembling with hope in desperation, trembling in rolling trains. They spoke many words in fear of blood, of sorrows and tears, in wagons driven by evil powers, howling through passing fields. And suddenly the thunder came, piercing silence, torn by cries, the rhythms of the wheels, spinning through fatal fields. Once a tribe of joy, they never said goodbye. Moved away in one direction, left forever one way. And suddenly the thunder came, piercing silence, torn by cries, the rhythms of the wheels, spinning through fatal fields. Once a tribe of joy, they never said goodbye. Moved away in one direction, left forever one way. Now after many years, we still speak of them with tears. We'll never forget the evil powers, never forget those
Thank you, Chazanit, once again for a beautiful rendition. Our next speaker is going to be Frieda Jaffe. Frieda is the founder of the Child Survivors and Hidden Children of the Holocaust in Palm Beach County in Florida. Her contributions are great and important. She writes and lectures on her experiences in the Shoah and has pledged herself to Jewish survival, ensuring that those who were so inhumanly slaughtered shall never be forgotten. Please welcome Frieda Jaffe.
I'm good.
Bruchim habayim, just welcome to all of you. Somehow it sounds better in Hebrew than it does otherwise. Yom Hashoah is a very special and meaningful commemoration for me. It's the only date when I can say Kaddish for my family, a large family in Poland. I have no cemetery, no burial spots, no place to visit and remember. And so it brings back very strong, very painful memories. April 15, 1945, British troops discover a living horror, a hell on earth, a Nazi death camp in northern Germany by the name, never to be forgotten, of Bergen-Belsen. I am there. I'm 7 years old, starved, lice-infected, head shaved, filthy, diseased, yet somehow, by some miracle, still alive. One of the very, very few, very young, well under the age of 10, Jewish children to have survived ghetto in Poland and camps in Germany. Yes, I am there, trying to disappear from view, to hide, to somehow, maybe I could become invisible. And on this April 15, 1945, I was afraid of all the noise, the trucks, the soldiers, what was going on. I didn't know the difference between one soldier's uniform or any other soldier's uniform. To my child's mind, anyone in a uniform also meant guns and clubs and usually very vicious dogs. And I never knew anyone wearing a uniform that didn't hurt or kill. And yet, this time, somehow there was something different about these men and these uniforms. Some of these soldiers were actually bent over, vomiting in the mud. A few tried to smile. Some of the others tried to help the women to sit or stand, trying in some way to speak with us, but in words, in a language that I didn't understand. Eventually, there began some manner of communication, whether it be in Polish, Yiddish, German, and somehow they made it clear to us that we need not fear these uniforms, but I knew only to run and hide, and so I did. I ran and I hid. A wonderful-looking British officer, I found that out later, found me in hiding in my mud hole underneath a large tree. This was a refuge. It was a place for me that I dug up where I could bury myself and see what was happening all around. Yeah, I tried to be invisible, and somehow this man, this uniform, managed to convince me that he would not harm me, that these uniforms represented help and food and water, and that I would get clean clothes and a place to sleep. I did not remember what clean meant, and I certainly did not know what a bed was. And then very, very strangely, this kind and patient officer actually tried to explain to me in some form that I was now free, that the war was over. Free? I did not know what free or what war meant. Oh, I knew the meaning of death, destruction, hunger, and pain. I knew the meaning of ghetto in my hometown of Piotrków and the labor camps inside the ghetto, especially the one glass factory called Hortensia. I knew the death camp called Ravensbrück, where women and girls were dying from medical experiments and brutality and unspeakable torment. And I certainly knew the living hell of this place called Bergen-Belsen. So I was told that I was free. What would happen to me now? What other uniforms would I have to learn about? Would any day or night be different? Would I have food, something warm to wear that was not covered with lice? Would I ever see sunshine again? And flowers? Oh, and maybe a butterfly. Oh, how I loved chasing butterflies when my family used to spend some time in the countryside. And oh, would there be anyone from my family to come for me and take care of me? Much too soon, I learned that my immediate family was no more, and that I was going to be sent to Sweden for adoption. No, 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 I would not go, and I did not go. Months later, I was somehow reunited with a sister and a brother of my mother who survived somehow in other camps and horrors. They too had suffered so much. And now they had me, Frieda, to care for. So yes, I survived, and to some degree I was healed. And I did see sunshine and butterflies again, but I never did see my parents, my baby brother Shimek, my grandparents, and oh, so many other members of my family. So yes, I survived death, but I did not survive the Shoah, the Holocaust. It will always be with me, a part of me. You see, I don't know how it was possible that this child of 7 survived alone, and I certainly have never, ever known why it was that I survived. I keep asking that question. There just doesn't seem to ever be an answer. And frankly, I doubt that there ever will be, but I do know this, that on April 15, 1945, when I was so-called liberated in Bergen-Belsen by the British, I only knew that I was terrified, that I was all alone, that I was very sick and starved, and that I was not yet 8 years old. I did not know how to be a child. There was no childhood to recall or remember, so how did I ever become an adult, never having been a child? And there are times, many times, when I'm asked, oh, why remember when it was oh so long ago? Why dwell on this painful and sorrowful subject of death, disease, destruction? Why? Because I must. And because the nightmares just don't go away, not ever. Because if there is hope for tomorrow, and our children and their children deserve a better tomorrow, we, the child survivors, must continue to zachor, to remember the terribly dark days of the Shoah, to continue to memorialize the lasting legacy of courage, love of life, importance of family and community, and the everlasting beauty and meaning of Yiddishkeit, Jewish history, culture, and tradition. Remembrance is not just on Yom HaShoah. It's instilled in our lives, and for me personally, very personally, it is the devastating awareness and duty to remember the children, the 1.5 million Jewish children systematically and diabolically murdered only because they were born Jewish. And so, as I stand here and speak to you, not much has changed in the world since I was a little girl. The world has learned so little. The ugly face of bigotry, prejudice, and evil keeps rearing its ugly head all around this world of ours, and children everywhere are still crying, still hungry, still diseased, and still dying. So for me, for the rest of my life, until my final breath, I shall remember the children.
And now we'll hear a rendition of Eternal Jerusalem, sung by, once again, Chazanit Lidigani, Music, lyrics, and accompaniment, once again, by Judith Evan Goldstein.
When moonlight
Thank you, Chazan Mitigani. Our next speaker is homegrown talent. He's our treasurer, and he's a member of the board of directors here at Beth Ami Congregation. It gives me great honor and privilege to call upon Joey OspA, who will share a few thoughts with us.
Hi. I'm Joseph Yashbi. I was born in 1945 in Tel Aviv, Israel. My parents, David and Rose Yashbi, had married in 1937, and they had 2 children, a 3-year-old boy named Abraham and a 6-month-old girl named Hasi. They lived in a ghetto in Rovno, Poland. By about 1942, my father realized that the lives of all the Jews in the ghetto were threatened to be killed. David went house to house in town begging Christians to take the children, but no one would. David and Rose fled the ghetto and joined the Russian partisans, leaving the children behind with Rose's parents, giving up everything they had. After 2 horrific years of fighting the Nazis, living in foxholes and bunkers, and doing whatever it took to survive, Rose and David returned to Rovno. No one had survived, not the children and not Rose's parents. Therefore, I am not just the child of survivors, but I'm the child of survivors who lost 2 children in the Holocaust. My parents carried this tragedy with them from country to country every minute of their day for the rest of their lives, but they nevertheless had the strength to keep rebuilding their lives. Jewish agencies moved my parents from Poland to a refugee camp in Italy, and then to Israel, Palestine at the time, where I was born. 6 years later, in 1951, Rose and Dave again gave up everything they had, a business and an apartment, to travel by boat to America and settle in the real promised land, Brooklyn, New York. It was so, I was 6 when I remember it well. 2 years later, in 1953, my sister was born in the USA. So my parents again had 2 children, a girl and a boy. How has my life been affected by my parents' Holocaust survival experience? All of my life, my father talked constantly about his experiences during the Holocaust. He talked about how he used his intellect, his friendliness, his cunning, and the fact that people knew and liked him to get him and Rose out of dangerous situations and to save his and Rose's lives on repeated occasions. On the other hand, my mother never talked about the Holocaust. She simply said those were bad times, very bad. What they both had in common was that they did not let the Holocaust stop them. Despite losing 2 children, they were the best possible parents they could be to me and my sister Estelle. My parents started their economic lives all over again, first in Israel, where my father had a store that sold clothes and hats from England, and later each of my parents had a ladies' sportswear store in Brooklyn. Despite my mother's hardships in life and her incapacitation later in life due to Parkinson's disease, she was always sweet, never bitter, and never stopped worrying about her children's safety. She lived for the nachas that she got from her children's accomplishments. I learned powerful lessons from both of my parents. Never give up, never let circumstances change who you are, and find the joy in life, no matter what. One more lesson my father taught me, it's when people start thinking of people as better or worse than other people, that a Holocaust can happen. So it's important to respect everyone. That's what I've taught my children. Lastly, as a child of survivors, I've been a student of the Holocaust all my life, including the following. I am an avid reader of nonfiction about the Holocaust and seek out any movies, documentaries, and speeches on the topic. I've visited Holocaust museums around the world whenever the opportunity arose. Last year, I went on a trip to Europe. My wife and I toured the Nazi transport camp Theresen. In 2017, we visited the community and the temple in Shanghai, China, where 23,000 Jews were saved from the Holocaust. Also, while my father was still alive but battling cancer, I made urgent arrangements with Steven Spielberg's Shoah Foundation to come to my sister's home in Belmore, Long Island, and do a 6-hour taping of my father's oral history of his and my mother's experiences in the Holocaust. That video is on file in 5 museums around the world, plus we have a copy. I am very pleased to have been instrumental in preserving my parents' Holocaust story for future generations.
Thank you, Joe, and let me take this opportunity to thank his wife, Eileen, for chairing the Beth Ami Congregation portion of today's program. We're now going to hear once again from Chazanit Lee Degani, a song called I Believe, accompanied by Judith Evan Goldstein. Beautifully done. Now we're going to hear from Fred Singer, board member of Insight Through Education. Fred is proud to volunteer to be an associate member of the Child Survivors Hidden Children's Organization. Fred has also been active member and board member of Insight Through Education organization for over 10 years. His special contribution of being a video filmmaker, and he moved all the way from the back to be up front here, is to have helped Insight document many of the organization's projects, including many of the Yom Hashoah survivors here at Beth Ami and the programs here at Beth Ami as well. It gives me great honor and privilege to present to you Fred Singer.
My name is Fred Singer, and I am here to represent the Insight Through Education organization. Insight's mission is to help fund Holocaust education programs in Palm Beach County for students and teachers. We provide programs for grades K through 12. We fund workshops for teachers so that they may educate their students about the evils of prejudice, racism, and encourage tolerance. The student-teacher trips to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. are life-changing. We also fund trips for Holocaust survivors to meet directly with middle school and high school students. On a personal level, I have been involved with the people of Insight for more than 12 years, documenting many of Insight's events, as well as interviewing many Holocaust survivors and students. Many times people ask me why I'm so involved with these programs, especially since no members of my family were directly affected by what happened in Europe during World War II. At first, I would say that videography was my avocation and that I enjoyed meeting people. However, after a while, I changed that answer to, it's not important why someone does something, but what they do. Most of you know the story of Oskar Schindler. We think about the 1,200 Jews he saved and the thousands of their descendants, not the money he tried to make from his factory by using free Jewish slave labor. But let's talk about today. In Port St. Lucie, Florida, there is a teacher who immigrated from the Dominican Republic at the age of 13. Living in a mostly lower-income Hispanic section of New York City, Belkis Madera had virtually no contact with anyone of the Jewish faith, either in the Dominican Republic or America. After obtaining her teaching certificate, she decided to specialize in world history. One day, a flyer appeared in the mailbox about a free trip to Washington, D.C., including a visit to the Holocaust Museum, where she met Norman. This trip was sponsored by Insight. Today, Belkis Madera's Holocaust program is sold out. There is a waiting list to attend. A visitor walking through the hallways of the Oak Hamid School feels as though they were in a Jewish day school, as most of the walls are covered with Judaica art as a result of the 5th and 6th grade students' Holocaust projects she taught. This past Easter Sunday, one of Belkis's former students, who is now a local policeman, approached her at church. After greeting her, he asked her if she was still teaching the Holocaust. Not if she was teaching European, Asian, or English history, but the Holocaust. 4 years ago, I was invited by Insight to join a group of 25 high school students and some of their teachers on an educational trip to Washington, D.C. There I met a teacher by the name of Toshimi Abe. This woman was born and educated in Japan. After meeting and marrying her husband, they moved back to the U.S., where she started her teaching career. Toshimi had virtually no contact with any Jewish people in Japan, and she had no knowledge of the Holocaust. Somehow, she decided to read Elie Wiesel's book, Night. From that point, learning and teaching the lessons of the Holocaust became her life's work. Why she read the book is of no consequence. It's what she did after that has changed hundreds of lives. Just last week, I happened to be seated next to a young man at the Insight Award Luncheon. He was there to be honored as one of 3 outstanding Holocaust educators in Palm Beach County. This summer, he will be part of an international seminar at Yad Vashem in Israel. His name is Bogdan Parashevu. Here is his story. He was born in Romania. At the age of 6, the Romanian Revolution erupted. He and his mother spent days hiding. Years later, after attending college in Romania, he decided to take an elective course in Jewish studies. The story of the Jews in Romania for the past 400 years is one of anti-Jewish rioting, massacres, pillages, pogroms, persecutions, educational restrictions, relocations, torturing, and expulsions. The Jewish population of the end of World War II was about 350,000. Today, it's only about 3,000. So why would a young Catholic Romanian college student want to study Jewish culture and eventually make it the center of his life's work? Again, it's not important why you do something, but what you do. During the past 6 months, synagogues in America have been a new target for those who want to take Jewish lives. The young men who have been charged with these violent crimes do not understand what it means to be a Jew. The teachings of our faith emphasize caring for others, justice for all, freedom for all, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and fix the world. Obviously, these men never had a teacher like Belkis Madera, Toshimi Abe, or Bogdan Parashevu. For if they had, these murders may have not occurred. In other words, the more the lessons of the Holocaust are taught, the more lives may be saved. Also, consider that all three of these were immigrants, these teachers, who came here to better their lives through their hard work and dedication. All have changed the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of children. A little later on today, in a few minutes, the members of the Loggers Run Middle School Girls Choir will be singing the song Paraziner Lid, the partisan song in Yiddish. The song is considered one of the chief anthems of the Holocaust survivors. If you ask these young ladies why they joined the choir, they might probably say they thought it would be fun, they liked to sing, or maybe their friends were doing it. In singing this Yiddish song, what they will do is bring happiness to everyone here on this most solemn of days. Today, these young ladies will learn a life lesson, that it's not why you do something, it's what you do. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Dr. Pierre Schonover as he leads us in We Remember Them. Pierre is also a child survivor.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sickened at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, as long as we things they have to do, they are all a part of us as we remember them. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and the chill of the winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of springs, we remember them. At the shining of the sun and the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, as they are now a part of us. We remember them. Thank you.
And now we're going to continue with our candle lighting ceremony as we remember the 6 million, as the theme of Schindler's List will be played by Judith Evan Goldstein. And we invite members of our shul to light the candles. So we invite candle number 1, Paul Hirsch, followed by Joey OspA. Candle number 3 by Ann Lerner. Candle number 4, Regina Plauner. Candle number 5, Henry Rosenthal. And we honor Richard Boyman to light candle number 6. Okay. Come on. Come on. And lighting for Ann Lerner will be C.J. Skolnick. Thank you very much. And now we call upon our cantor Elliot Dicker, who will lead us in the traditional memorial prayer, memorializing the 6 million by reciting and chanting the Kel Mali Rachamim prayer. Thank you, Cantor Dicker. And Gary Lawrence, thank you very much. At this point, we'd like you, if you have Sidurim, the blue Sidurim that should be at arm's length of you, we invite you to open them up. Turn to page 840 as I invite Norman Fryman to join me here. It's a special Kaddish recited on Yom Hashoah, page 840. As you'll see by the text, how special it is. If you can, kindly rise. If you can't, we understand. Okay, on page 840, together. Should I do Hebrew? Yisgadal. Wait 1 second, let's do it the way it's written. Yisgadal.
Auschwitz,
Yisgadash.
Lodge,
Shemei Rabbah.
Ponar,
B'yalma divrachi, we say together.
Babiyar,
V'yamlich malchusei.
Maidanek,
V'chayechon of Yomechon.
Birkenau,
Uv'chayei dechol beis Yisroel.
Kovno,
Ba'galov izman kariv.
Yanovska,
V'yimru amen. Together, Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavorach Liolam Iol Me'ol Maya. Yisborach v'yishtabach,
Theresienstadt,
v'yisboar v'yisromam,
Buchenwald,
v'yisnaseh v'yisadar,
Treblinka,
v'yishalev v'yishalal,
Vilna,
Shemei dekudisha,
Bergen-Belsen,
b'richu le'elah,
Mauthausen,
min kol berchasa v'shirasa,
Dachau,
dushbechasa v'nechemasa,
Minsk,
damiran b'alma,
Warsaw,
V'yimru amen. Together, Yehei Shlomo Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisroel v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisroel v'yimru amen. You may be seated as we continue now with Chazanit Lee Dagani, accompanied by Judith Evan Goldstein, of the singing of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav.
We ask you to please join with us.
Thank you, Chazanit. I'm going to introduce to you now Randy Posner. Randy Posner is the president of Next Generation. She's been devoted to Next Generations for a number of years, and as the survivors age, Randy saw to it that their needs became more acute and more necessary to ensure that their lives, their remaining years, are lived in dignity and in comfort, and she thought that to be the responsibility fundamental to her organization. So it's an honor and a privilege for me to call up Randy Posner to light the seventh candle and address the audience as she is lighting the future.
Wow. What an experience to stand here before you. It is an honor to say the very least. Why? 3 letters, simple question. Why? Why what? Why are we here today? We are here today to commemorate the Shoah, the catastrophe, the utter destruction of European Jewry as it existed in the 20th century. We are here today to remember those who perished and to honor those who survived. We are here today to recognize the strength, the will of mankind, and the triumph of good over evil. Why did the Holocaust happen? Why did the world stand by and watch until it was too late? Why were innocent children murdered at the hands of the Nazi soldiers? Why were the gays, the disabled, Jehovah's Witnesses, Romas, and of course, Jews murdered? I've asked over and over again why, and I do not have an answer. Only speculation. As a child growing up on Long Island, I was blessed to live a life of comfort and privilege. I did not experience hate, bigotry, or prejudice firsthand. Sorry, guys. My parents made sure that I developed a keen sense of compassion and understanding for others. They made sure that I embraced diversity and responsibility to people who were different. And they showed me by example how to make the world a better place. I learned at an early age that I have power. I have power to do the right thing for myself and for others. I am a leader, a woman who has been empowered with knowledge and with strength. I have been blessed to have amazing role models in my life: my parents, my teachers, my friends, and you. Yes, you. So many of you in this room have overcome challenges that I never faced. You never asked to be survivors, but you are. You have turned some of the most horrific life circumstances into lives that are filled with pride, with dignity, with blessings, and with community. You have turned your victimization of the horrors of the Holocaust into positive, productive lives that we honor here today. Why do we want to follow in your footsteps? Why, like the Passover story, do we need to retell the experiences of the Holocaust every year on Yom Hashoah? Why must we continue to tell everyone? Why? We must continue to tell your stories and the stories of those who did not survive, so that it never, ever happens again. Elie Wiesel once wrote, "My greatest disappointment is that I believe that those of us who went through the war and tried to write about it, about their experience, became messengers. We have given the message. Nothing has changed." Well, we will not give up. As president of Next Generations, you have my promise that we will become the future messengers of those people who suffered the unthinkable. Our work is there for us. 15 years ago, Nancy Dershaw and a group of children of survivors created an organization based on the promise that they would never let the stories of the Holocaust die. They created Next Generations, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating students and adults of all ethnicities about the lessons that must be learned from the Holocaust. We encourage all individuals to speak out against bullying, bigotry, intolerance, and genocide. Our hope is that future generations will be more determined to maintain a world free of such atrocities. Education is one of the most effective tools to prevent future genocides. Silence is not the answer. It never was, and it never will be. We must give voice to the victims, the bystanders, and especially to the upstanders, who can eliminate the intolerance so prevalent in our world today. Our aim at Next Generations is to increase knowledge and understanding of the massive violation of human rights by promoting and instituting Holocaust curricula in our academic institutions and in our community. Why do prejudice and bigotry still rear their ugly faces daily in the news and in our lives? Why Pittsburgh? Why California? Israeli researchers reported Wednesday that violent attacks against Jews spiked significantly last year, with the largest reported number of Jews killed in anti-Semitic acts in decades, leading to an increasing sense of emergency among Jewish communities worldwide. Assaults targeting Jews rose 13% in 2018, according to Tel Aviv University researchers. They recorded nearly 400 cases worldwide, with more than a quarter of the major violent cases taking place right here in the good old USA. Why? Clearly, our mission is not done. Next Generations and the students we work with will continue to be the voices of the descendants of the Holocaust. We will do everything we can to educate about intolerance, hatred, and bigotry. We will show our students and our communities that indifference can lead to destruction. We need to strive to create a better world for our children, our grandchildren, and even our great-grandchildren, for the Kinder. Why must we commit ourselves to telling the stories of the Holocaust? So that history will not repeat itself. That is why we are here today. Never again.
Thank you, Randy. That was beautiful. We'd like to ask you to kindly rise, face the Israeli flag as we continue with Hatikva, followed by God Bless America, as we'll face the American flag after. Gary Lawrence will lead us together with our Chazan, Elliot Ticker. At this time, let us observe a moment of silence for our 6 million brothers and sisters who were senselessly killed in the Holocaust. Thank you very much. You may be seated. A very, very special ending to our program is going to take place now. Friends, I want to introduce to you to a special happening, a gift for this, our 13th Bar Mitzvah Yom Hashoah commemoration taking place here at Beth Ami Congregation. We want to welcome the Loggers Run Middle School, Carolina Simon, an inspired social science educator and Holocaust Studies Program Director, is with us. We have Dawn Zeman, Music and Choir Director, and the Fine Arts Academy Girls Choir, who will touch our hearts with their rendition of a special song. So we want to welcome up to the bima the Loggers Run Middle School Choir. Let's have a large round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. While they're lining up, I want to just add a special thanks to all of our sponsors today, and especially to Zelda Fuchsman, Executive Vice President of Child Survivors and Hidden Children of the Holocaust, and all those who participated in making sure that this afternoon was a success, a most meaningful success. We ask you to kindly rise.
From the land of palm trees to the far-off land of snow, we shall be coming with our torment, with our woe. And everywhere our blood has sunk within the earth, shall our bravery or vigor blossom forth.
Before the sun appears, let this song go like a signal through the years.
Amidst burning barricades that sang this song of ours with pistols and grenades.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. What a beautiful rendition of the partisan song by Largers Run Middle School Choir. Beautifully done, gals. We want to thank you all very much for staying with us. Safe travels home next year in Jerusalem.
Rabbi, thank you so much.